Hello and welcome to the Artword podcast. My name is Jenny Danielson and this is a special edition in collaboration with Royale Projects here in Los Angeles. It's connected to a special exhibition called If You Steal My Sunshine, California Abstraction Now. We're about to listen to an interview with Adee Roberson, and at the end we will speak with Rick Royale about the exhibition. Who are you?
Adee Roberson.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So I'm just going to talk about a little bit about your work that's included in the show. We're talking about abstraction and materiality. I think we can start with abstraction. What does abstraction mean to you?
Let's see. I mean, I feel like it's very specific. For me, it's like a meditation on my collective memory of my life and my lived experience, mixture of my lived experience, mixture of research that I've done, and yeah.
What's the title of the work they have in this show?
Awolowo Road.
Does Awolowo Road exist?
Yes.
Yes. Where is it?
It's in Lagos, Nigeria.
Did you ever live there?
I didn't live there, but I was there when I worked on the piece.
Ah,
yeah.
Did you make the piece there?
I did. Yeah.
So that piece has traveled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how did you choose? Well, how would you describe the work?
Well, I think because it was made there, it had a lot of the energy from being there, and it's just a place that's on a very high frequency, energetically, as there's just a lot of going on. There's it feels like hundreds of different types of transportation and so many things going on at once, but they all kind of move together and become like this. Going into that, you become like a part of like a larger organism. And so that's kind of what the piece is about.
And how did you find the materials to work with?
I brought the materials with me there because I wasn't sure what I could find there, and I know I had specific colors, and so I brought everything with me there, and I worked on it there. Interesting.
So how do you find these materials that you work with?
It's just getting paint, paint and canvas, really. That's all it is.
Well, it's not at all that is.
You get at the art supply store. It's,
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Because you work in different materials, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah, but this piece in particular is just a painting. So it's, it was just getting acrylic paint and house paint and canvas. And
how do you go about the installation?
That just depends on the space. I usually come to the space and feel it out and see where I want it to be placed and work with it on the wall and placing it. And a lot of times it looks different. They look different in different places. So that could look like that here, but the same piece could look different somewhere else.
And you're happy with that?
Yeah.
The idea that things can change?
Yeah.
And the work can change as well?
Yeah. I think that's a part of the work.
Because you do installation work as well, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Like sort of large scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some of the installation, I mean, this is a group show, but usually if it's something that I'm doing on my own, it's a mixture of print work and paintings and sound and video and sculptural things too.
Do you work with performance as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I do a lot of performance.
And how do you go about that? Because then do you think it's a practice, everything you do? Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, it's all a part of my whole practice is like including, I use each of those modalities and disciplines to kind of transmute different energies. So, but a lot of times the performance stuff will be used to kind of activate a space, to activate an installation, or to engage and activate in a space in a certain way. Usually it's like along with an installation, either somebody else's installation or my own, but the sound is used as like an activation of the pieces.
How do you think California plays in?
I think one of the reasons why I was really interested, I've only lived in Los Angeles for 3 years. I lived in Oakland before that for 4 years. And I was definitely drawn to California because it is more experimental as far as artists that I was looking to in the past. And then LA specifically, there has a history of Black artists here being very experimental. LA Rebellion, those people, obviously like Betty Saar, Noah Purifoy. I mean, the list goes on here. There's a huge list of people who have made really experimental work here that has always inspired me. Obviously David Hammonds and Sankan Ngudi. So I was really drawn to live in LA and see what the energy was like here, to experiment and see how my own practice would unfold.
And has it been anything what you expected?
Yeah. It's been a challenge, It's been a challenge for myself to... There's a certain amount of vulnerability that I think a lot of those people have that I really admire. And not the type of vulnerability that comes from, like, I think Rich Now we see a lot on social media, which can feel kind of fake, but the kind of vulnerability where you're vulnerable with yourself and you're taking risk to make things that aren't necessarily marketable or people don't necessarily get, but it comes from the source, it comes from spirituality, and it comes from a certain place of vulnerability. So I think it's been a challenge for me to work with that here more. I didn't think it would be, because those are all these things I look to, but I've been challenged since I've lived in LA to really put that type of energy into my own work.
Have you found a community here?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Before I even got here, I had people here, which was great.
Because I think this is also interesting. I feel the same way, that you're vulnerable and people really put themselves out there.
Yeah.
At the same time, if you know who you are and if you have something sort of to bring to the table, and if you have something that you already know about yourself, it's very easy to find your community.
Yeah.
It's easy to find really, really good people.
Yeah, there's great people. I mean, it's so funny because I was living in the Bay Area, which I love the Bay Area because I love the redwoods and I love just I love so much about it. But I felt like I hit a glass ceiling there, and it felt, since the art world, things are so small there was a scarcity narrative. And I think with LA, a lot of people would think that about it here because I think of Hollywood and just, there's a lot of hustle here. But actually what I've experienced here has been like people being other artists being nothing but supportive to me, and other curators really nurturing my career and helping me to get to places that I want to go. It doesn't feel like it's around scarcity. It feels like it's more around abundance and support.
Yeah, because you were saying as well about the historical references, that there's something very specific about the artist community, I would say, of LA.
Yeah.
And I like that. I really like how people are so welcoming and friendly. And also, I have a strong feeling that people look after each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's say something more about the piece that we have here. We said, you did say the title, right? And we talked about the materiality of things. When was it made, by the way?
July 2019, so just a few months ago.
How's Lagos?
Really amazing.
Yeah, I would imagine. I've always wanted to go. Yeah. It's a really big city.
Yeah, it's huge, and I was only there for 2 weeks, so I feel like I barely scratched the surface. I'd like to go back for a longer time at some point. There's some really amazing, prolific artists there. A lot of really powerful women in the performance art community there, and somebody that I've always looked up to, and a friend of mine, Wara Natasha Ugunji, she's had the space there and kind of let me come and do the residency there with my collaborator, Keon Gaskin. So we already kind of had she's been living there for 5 years, and she runs this beautiful space called Treehouse Lagos. And before I even been there, I was in a 2-person show there last year in November with an artist named Rahima Gambo, who is from Abuja, which is the capital. So I had already started making connections before I got there, which is great. Which is the great thing about social media, because Rahima and I were in the show and we didn't actually get to meet, but we've kept in touch on social media since then. And I didn't get to see her because she doesn't actually live in Lagos, but it was we were both oh my God, you're here. And, we're not seeing each other, but we were in the show together. So, it felt good to go and start to kind of build a relationship and have more of a, and be in a more global dialogue with other artists, because there's just, I mean, the world is so huge and expansive, and there's so many people doing such amazing work that's so inspiring, and it's nice to not be in the States and get that perspective of what people are working on. It's a lot more real, and a lot of times it feels a lot more smart. You know, here it's like it's very like, you know, it's you. I don't know. It's you get what you get here sometimes, but there, I was really inspired by like, yeah, just how smart and innovative and deep things were, and that was also a challenge for me too, to really look at that in my own practice too.
So how do you find your own space here to work at?
I have a studio.
Because I was thinking about, and we will also talk about this later in the panel, that we are so surrounded by so much information. We're constantly in contact with people all around the world, different time zones, and we love these people a lot. And we feel really inspired by them, but it's also important to find your own little, I don't know, space.
Yeah.
Maybe it is about space where you actually make your things and connect. And you've been able to find that here?
Yeah, I mean, I have my studio. I'm also a weirdo, and I spend a lot of time alone.
Yeah, no, so do I.
And
I
spend a lot of time alone. I try to meditate every morning. I try to exercise. Lately, I've been waking up at like 6 or 7 and going on walks, that's a nice alone time. It's great. There's so many places to hike here too. Yeah, I don't really spend too much time like partying or socializing. I may have my tight-knit group of friends that I spend time with that are like my family. I mean, I live with my best friend who I've known for, at this point, 13 years. So it's like we're family. At our house, it's like our parents come and stay, and our siblings and our other old friends that we've known for a long time. So I feel like that kind of, I have like a little nook, a little safe space that I get to kind of hole up in and be nurtured, and then I pop out and do some things awkwardly. And one of my friends was like, "You're an introvert with really good social skills."
Oh, I can so relate to that.
You know, it's like I don't so like being out, but I can, if I'm out, I can kind of do it. But you know, I like being in.
Yeah, no, so do I. I think that's very, very important because it's tough to constantly be looked at and having to provide something or for someone else. I think we increasingly need to just be on our own.
Yeah.
Because we're surrounded by a bit too much of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks.
So let's start with, who are you?
I'm Rick Royale. We are at Royal Projects in downtown Los Angeles.
Would you say something about the current exhibition? How did it come about?
I wanted to do an exhibition bringing some new artists into the space. And there were a couple of artists that I thought would be interesting to show together. Instead of doing a typical kind of research the way we would have done it on other artists for this group show, what I thought would be interesting is to look at social media and see what we found visually out there, because obviously that is the way that a lot of people are looking at art now. So I put this challenge out to myself and my wife and to Nicolette, and we pulled together a group of artists that we just thought visually worked well together, that were interesting to us. And then we started looking into the artists, which is sort of often almost backwards the way that you would do it. You would know the artist first and then look at the work. One of the things that we found very curious was the commonalities between the artists that we were looking at. Many of them were women. Many of them had some sort of connection to California, whether that was they were living here, born here, had been on a residency here, etc. So that brought further questions to what this exhibition was going to be. And it really grew from there. And I think at the end, it ended up being interesting that we brought 6 different artists who really had no obvious connection to each other, but yet they had some sort of a cohesive kind of voice within their practices.
And also interesting that these artists did not know of each other beforehand.
True, exactly. after we selected a group of artists,